Maya had always been the type of person who believed in keeping an open mind. As a graduate student studying space biology at the university, she spent her days reading about distant planets and wondering what life might look like beyond Earth. But she never expected that life to literally show up at her apartment door. On a Tuesday evening in October, the whole thing started innocently enough. Maya needed a roommate to help split the rent on her tiny two-bedroom apartment near campus. Money was tight, and even with her research assistant job, she could barely afford to live alone in the city. So when her university posted about an international exchange student looking for housing, she jumped at the chance. The application seemed normal at first glance. The student's name was listed as Zef, and the paperwork mentioned he was part of the special cultural exchange program. What caught Maya's attention was the generous housing allowance offered, enough to cover most of her rent. It seemed too good to be true, but Maya figured she could use some extra money and maybe learn about a different culture. In the process, the university coordinator who handled the arrangements was oddly secretive about details. When Maya asked which country Zef was from, the coordinator gave vague answers about it being a very distant location and mentioned something about unique customs that Maya should be prepared for. She was told that Zef would arrive with minimal belongings, and that he was participating in an observational study of local living conditions. Maya cleaned the spare bedroom and stocked up on basic groceries, trying to guess what her new roommate might need. She imagined someone from a remote village or perhaps an isolated island nation, where technology was different. She prepared herself for language barriers and cultural differences, but nothing could have prepared her for what actually happened. When the doorbell rang that Tuesday evening, Maya opened the door expecting to see a regular college student with luggage and maybe some nervous energy about living in a new place. Instead, she found herself face to face with someone who looked almost human, but not quite right. Zef stood about 6 feet tall with perfectly symmetrical features that seemed too flawless to be natural. His skin had a subtle blue tint that became more noticeable under the porch light, and when he smiled, his eyes seemed to catch and reflect light in an unusual way. "Hello, Maya," he said in perfect English, though his voice had an odd musical quality to it. "I am Zef. I believe you are expecting me." Maya blinked several times, wondering if the stress of graduate school was finally getting to her. Yes, come in," she managed to say, stepping aside to let him enter. Zef walked into her apartment carrying only a small cube that looked like it was made of polished metal. The cube was about the size of a lunch box but seemed to shimmer with its own internal light as Maya watched. The cube appeared to fold in on itself and disappear completely into what looked like thin air. "That's quite a trick," Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Are you a magician or something?" Zef tilted his head in a way that reminded Maya of a curious bird. "I am not familiar with this term magician. I am here to study human domestic behaviors and social customs. The university program selected your living space as an ideal environment for observational research." That's when it hit Maya. This wasn't an international exchange student in the traditional sense. The way Zef spoke, the way he looked, the strange technology, it all pointed to something far more extraordinary than she had bargained for. But instead of feeling scared, Maya felt a rush of excitement. As someone who had spent years wondering about life beyond Earth, she was looking at what appeared to be actual proof that it existed. "You're not from around here, are you?" she asked carefully. Zef's eyes lit up, literally. They flashed with a brief silver glow before returning to a more human-like appearance. "That is correct. I am from what you would call Kepler 440b. It is approximately 1,200 light-years from your planet. I am part of the first cultural exchange program between our worlds." Maya sank into her couch, trying to process this information. "So you're telling me that aliens are real? There's some kind of official exchange program happening, and I just agreed to be roommates with someone from another planet. That is an accurate summary." Zef replied, seeming pleased that she understood. "Though I should mention that alien is not the preferred term. I am simply a being from elsewhere, much like you would be if you visited my world." For several minutes, Maya sat in stunned silence while Zeph remained standing by the door, observing her reaction with intense interest. Finally, her scientific curiosity overcame her shock. This was potentially the discovery of a lifetime, and it was happening in her own living room. Okay, she said slowly. I have about 1,000,000 questions. But first, are you planning to hurt me or take over the planet or anything like that? Zeph looked genuinely confused by the question. Why would I wish to cause harm? I am here to learn about your species through direct observation. My people are naturally peaceful, and we have no interest in conquest or conflict. We simply wish to understand how other intelligent beings organize their daily lives. Something in his tone convinced Maya that he was telling the truth. Besides, if aliens wanted to invade Earth, they probably wouldn't start by moving in as roommates and splitting the rent. All right then, Maya said, surprising herself with her own calm acceptance. I guess we're roommates. But I have some ground rules if this is going to work. Zeph immediately pulled out what looked like a small device that projected a holographic screen into the air. Please state your conditions. I will record them for future reference. Maya watched in amazement as Zeph prepared to take notes using technology that looked like something from a science fiction movie. First, no probing. I don't know what kind of research your people usually do, but I'm not comfortable with any medical examinations or experiments. Understood. My research focuses solely on observational data regarding domestic routines and social interactions. Second, we keep this between us. I don't think the world is ready to know about you yet, and I don't want government agents showing up at my door. Agreed. Discretion is essential for accurate observational research. Third, you help with rent and household chores like any normal roommate would. That arrangement is acceptable. Maya looked around her small apartment, still hardly believing the situation she found herself in. And fourth, you have to at least try to act human when other people are around. Can you do that? Zeph's appearance seemed to shift slightly, his skin tone becoming more naturally human and his eyes losing their unusual reflective quality. I can adjust my physical appearance to better match local norms. Is this improvement adequate? That's actually pretty impressive, Maya admitted. Okay, I guess we can make this work. But I'm warning you now, I have no idea what I'm doing. Here, that is perfectly acceptable, Zeph replied with what appeared to be relief. I also have no previous experience with this type of arrangement. We can learn together. As Maya showed Zeph to his room and explained the basics of the apartment, she couldn't help but feel like her life had just taken the most unexpected turn possible. She had gone from struggling graduate student to the roommate of someone from another world. In the span of a single evening, little did she know that the real adventure was just beginning, and that her new roommate's efforts to understand human culture were about to lead to some very interesting misunderstandings. The first week living with Zeph went surprisingly well. Maya had expected chaos. Maybe some alien technology exploding in her kitchen or strange visitors from outer space showing up at odd hours. Instead, she found herself with the most polite and curious roommate she'd ever had. Zeph took his research seriously. Every morning, he would sit at the kitchen table with his holographic device, carefully documenting Maya's routine. He recorded everything from how she made her coffee to the way she organized her textbooks. At first, Maya found it a bit unsettling to have every action analyzed and noted. But Zeph was so genuinely fascinated by the simplest things that she began to find it endearing. Your species maintains an interesting relationship with heated bean water, Zeph observed one morning as Maya prepared her usual cup of coffee. It's called coffee, and yes, we're pretty dependent on it. Maya laughed. Does your species have anything similar? We absorb energy directly from crystalline formations, Zeph replied, making notes. But I find your ritual of preparation and consumption fascinating. It appears to serve both nutritional and psychological purposes. Maya had grown used to these kinds of conversations. Zeph approached everything with scientific curiosity, treating her apartment like a laboratory for human behavior. He was particularly interested in her study habits, taking detailed notes about how she balanced work and rest, and how she interacted with her textbooks and computer. But Maya started noticing something odd about Zeph's research focus. Whenever she headed toward the bathroom, he would immediately grab his recording device and position himself where he could observe her movements. When she mentioned taking a shower, his eyes would light up with that strange silver glow, and he would start scribbling notes frantically. At first, Maya assumed he was just curious about human hygiene practices. After all, if you're from another planet, everything about how humans take care of themselves would probably seem interesting. But as the days went on, Zeph's attention to her bathroom habits became more intense and focused. Your cleansing rituals are quite frequent, Zeph commented one evening as Maya grabbed a towel from the linen closet. This is the 7th time this week you have engaged in the water ceremony. Water ceremony? Maya raised an eyebrow. You mean taking a shower? Most people shower daily, Zeph. It's basic hygiene. Yes, but you always perform this ritual alone, Zeph said, his recording device hovering in the air beside him. I have been researching your species' domestic customs, and I believe I may have identified a significant cultural practice that we have not yet engaged in. Maya paused, towel in hand. Something in Zeph's tone made her nervous. What kind of cultural practice? Zeph's expression became very serious, like a scientist about to present an important discovery. Based on my extensive research of human roommate relationships, I have concluded that shared cleansing rituals are an essential bonding activity for domestic pod units. Domestic pod units? Maya repeated slowly. Yes, what you call roommates. Zeph explained patiently. I have been studying your human information networks, and I have found numerous references to the importance of shower-related bonding between cohabiting individuals. Maya felt a chill run down her spine that had nothing to do with the bathroom tile. Zeph, what exactly have you been researching? Zeph proudly activated his holographic display, showing Maya a collection of what appeared to be internet articles, social media posts, and website screenshots. Observe these documented examples of human shower culture, he said, pointing to various headlines and phrases he had collected. Maya stared at the display in growing horror. Zeph had somehow gathered a collection of completely unrelated content that he had woven together into a comprehensive theory about human bathing customs. There were articles about college dormitory life, spa advertisements, fitness blogs discussing post-workout routines, and even some lifestyle pieces about water conservation. Look here, Zeph said, highlighting a particular section. This human writes about shower thoughts as a significant mental exercise, and here, another human discusses sharing the bathroom with roommates as a necessary life skill. This academic article mentions communal bathing in various human cultures throughout history. Zeph. No, wait, Maya started to interrupt, but he was on a roll. Most importantly, Zeph continued, I found numerous references to humans feeling closer to their roommates after sharing living spaces, and many mentions of bonding activities that strengthen household relationships. The evidence clearly indicates that the shower ritual is central to successful human cohabitation. Maya stared at the holographic display, watching Zeph's perfectly logical but completely wrong conclusion unfold before her eyes. He had taken fragments of information about college life, self-care articles, historical references to public baths, and casual mentions of bathroom sharing, and had somehow constructed an elaborate theory that roommates were supposed to shower together as a bonding ritual. Zeph, Maya said carefully, I think there's been a misunderstanding. But Zeph wasn't listening. He was too excited about his discovery. I have been waiting for you to initiate this important cultural exchange, he said earnestly. I understand that human social customs can be complex, and perhaps you were waiting for me to demonstrate my readiness to participate in your traditional bonding ceremonies. Traditional bonding ceremonies? Maya's voice came out as a squeak. Double quotes. Yes, I have prepared myself for this significant step in our roommate relationship, Zeph announced proudly. I have studied the optimal water temperature preferences of your species, researched appropriate cleansing products, and I am ready to engage in the shared ritual that will strengthen our domestic pod unit. Maya realized with growing dread that Zeph had spent the entire week building up to what he believed was an important cultural milestone in their roommate relationship. In his mind, every shower she had taken alone was simply a delay before the real bonding experience began. I have even observed other humans at your educational facility. Zeph continued enthusiastically. At the recreational center, I noticed that humans often engage in group cleansing activities after physical exercise. This confirms my research about the social importance of communal water rituals. You were watching people at the gym, Maya asked weakly, only for research purposes. Zeph assured her. I wanted to ensure I understood the proper protocols. Before suggesting we begin our own bonding sessions, Maya sank against the bathroom door frame, still clutching her towel. Her alien roommate, in his earnest attempt to understand human culture, had somehow convinced himself that roommates traditionally showered together, as a way of building friendship and trust. The worst part was that his logic made perfect sense from an outside perspective. Even though it was completely wrong, Zeph, she said slowly, we need to talk about this. Of course, Zeph replied happily. I am eager to discuss the proper procedures. For our first shared cleansing ritual, should we establish a schedule? Are there specific customs I should be aware of? I want to ensure I participate appropriately in this important human tradition. Maya looked at her well-meaning, completely misguided alien roommate and realized that her simple life as a graduate student had just become infinitely more complicated. She had no idea how to explain to someone from another planet that his entire understanding of human bathroom etiquette was based on a massive cultural misinterpretation. As Zeph waited expectantly for her response, Maya wondered if there was any chance she could convince him that aliens were supposed to maintain their own separate bathroom customs. But seeing the eager, trusting expression on his face, she knew this conversation was going to be much more difficult than she had hoped. Maya spent the next 3 days trying to convince Zeph that his shower theory was completely wrong. She explained privacy, personal space, and individual hygiene practices until she was blue in the face. But every time she thought she was making progress, Zeph would pull up more evidence from his research to support his beliefs. I understand your hesitation, Zeph said patiently during one of their conversations. Human social customs often involve complex emotional preparations. Perhaps you need more time to feel comfortable with our bonding ritual. It's not about comfort, Zeph, Maya replied for the 100th time. People just don't shower together unless they're married or in a relationship. Roommates have separate bathroom time. But Zeph simply nodded knowingly, as if Maya was proving his point. Yes, this confirms my research about trust barriers in human relationships. The shower ritual must be very sacred to your species if it requires such emotional readiness. Maya realized she was trapped in a circular argument. The more she tried to explain why they shouldn't shower together, the more convinced Zeph became that shower sharing was an incredibly meaningful human tradition that required careful preparation. Things got worse when Maya's study group started meeting at their apartment. The first time her classmates came over, Zeph was genuinely excited to observe multiple humans interacting in his research environment. Maya had coached him on acting normal around other people, and he did surprisingly well at first. Your friend Zeph seems nice, commented Riley, one of Maya's lab partners, as they worked on the research project. Where did you say he was from? Again, bum, really far away, Maya said vaguely. Different customs and everything. Zeph, who had been quietly observing the group from the kitchen, suddenly perked up with interest. Riley, may I ask about your roommate relationships? I am conducting research on human domestic bonding practices. Riley laughed. Sure, I guess. I live with 3 other people in a house near campus. It's pretty chaotic, but we make it work. Excellent, Zeph said, pulling out his recording device. And how often do you engage in communal cleansing rituals? With your housemates? The entire study group went silent. Riley stared at Zeph with a confused expression. I'm sorry. What? Maya felt her face turn red. Zeph, maybe we should discuss this later. But Zeph was too focused on his research to notice Maya's panic. I am referring to the shared shower experiences that strengthen roommate bonds. Maya has been quite modest about participating in this tradition, so I'm curious about other humans' experiences with bathroom bonding activities. The silence in the room became deafening. Maya watched as her classmates exchanged bewildered glances, clearly trying to process what Zeph had just said. "Dude," said Alex, another member of their study group, "that's not really a thing. Like, at all?" Zeph's eyes lit up with that familiar silver glow. "Ah, so it is a more private custom than I initially understood." This explains Maya's reluctance to discuss the details. "No, Zeph," Maya said desperately, "that's not what he means." But the damage was done. Riley was staring at both of them with wide eyes, clearly trying to figure out what kind of weird living situation Maya had gotten herself into. Alex looked like he was trying not to laugh, while the other members of the study group seemed genuinely concerned. "Maybe we should work on this project at the library instead," Riley suggested carefully. After her friends left, Maya tried once again to explain the situation to Zeph, but instead of understanding her embarrassment, he became even more convinced that he had uncovered something important about human culture. "Your friends' reactions confirm my theory," Zeph announced triumphantly. "Clearly, the shower bonding ritual is so meaningful to humans that they become emotional when discussing it with outsiders. This explains why you have been protective of our domestic traditions." "They're not protective, Zeph. They think we're weird." "Of course they do." Zeph nodded sagely. "We have not yet completed our bonding ceremony, so our roommate unit appears incomplete to other humans. They can sense that we have not achieved proper domestic harmony." Maya realized that no amount of explanation was going to change Zeph's mind. He had created such an elaborate theory about human shower culture that every piece of contradictory evidence somehow became proof that he was right. The situation got even more complicated when Zeph decided to expand his research beyond Maya's friend group. He started attending lectures in the anthropology department, somehow bypassing the registration system with his advanced technology. Maya only found out about this when Professor Williams mentioned seeing an interesting international student asking detailed questions about communal bathing practices in various cultures. He seemed very knowledgeable about cross-cultural hygiene rituals. Professor Williams told Maya after class, though his questions were quite specific. He kept asking about the emotional significance of shared washing experiences and whether they strengthen social bonds in traditional societies. Maya groaned inwardly, imagining Zeph taking detailed notes during anthropology lectures and finding ways to support his shower theory with academic research. The final straw came when Zeph decided to conduct field research at the campus recreation center. Maya came home from her lab work to find him sitting at the kitchen table, excitedly reviewing what appeared to be hours of observational data. "Maya, I have made a breakthrough in my research," he announced as soon as she walked in the door. "I spent the afternoon observing humans at your fitness facility, and I now understand why our bonding ritual has been delayed." "Please tell me you didn't do anything weird at the gym," Maya said, dropping her backpack and preparing for the worst. "I simply observed the natural behavior patterns of your species," Zeph replied innocently. "And I discovered something fascinating. Humans do engage in group cleansing activities, but only after specific physical preparations. They exercise together, build trust through shared physical challenges, and then participate in communal washing rituals." Maya stared at him in horror. "You were watching people shower at the gym only from an anthropological perspective," Zeph assured her. "I maintained appropriate observation distance and took careful notes about the social dynamics. I now understand that humans must achieve a certain level of physical and emotional bonding before they feel comfortable sharing cleansing spaces. Zeph, those people don't know each other. They're just using the facilities." But Zeph was already pulling up his holographic display, showing Maya charts and graphs he had created based on his gym observations. "Notice how humans make eye contact and engage in brief social exchanges before entering the shower area. This confirms that trust building is essential to the process." Maya sank into a chair, realizing that her alien roommate had now misinterpreted an entire gym full of people going about their normal routines. as evidence for his elaborate shower bonding theory. She could only imagine what the other gym users thought of the strange guy. Taking notes on their workout habits, I have also determined the optimal preparation activities for our own bonding ritual. Zeph continued enthusiastically. We should engage in physical exercise together, share a meal, and perhaps participate in trust-building conversations before attempting the shower ceremony. Zeph, we are not going to have a shower ceremony, Maya said firmly. I understand your continued hesitation. Zeph replied with infinite patience. But I believe I have finally identified the source of your reluctance. You are concerned about the emotional intimacy that will result from our bonding experience. This is completely natural for humans, according to my research. Maya looked at her well-meaning, completely misguided alien roommate and realized that the situation had spiraled completely out of control. Not only was Zeph more convinced than ever about his shower theory, but he was now planning elaborate preparation activities, and had probably been reported to campus security for his enthusiastic research methods. She needed a new strategy, and she needed it fast, before Zeph's cultural misunderstanding got them both in serious trouble. Maya thought things couldn't get any worse until she came home from classes on Friday afternoon to find her bathroom transformed into what looked like an alien spa. Soft, colorful lights floated in the air without any visible source, casting rainbow patterns on the walls. Strange, soothing music filled the apartment, a bizarre mix of nature sounds, electronic beats, and what sounded like whale songs mixed with elevator music. Welcome home, Maya, Zeph called out cheerfully from the bathroom doorway. He was wearing a fluffy white bathrobe that Maya had never seen before, and his usual human disguise seemed more relaxed, allowing his natural blue-tinted skin to show through slightly. What is all this? Maya asked, staring at the floating lights, with a mixture of amazement and dread. I have prepared the optimal environment for our cultural bonding ritual, Zeph announced proudly. After extensive research, I determined that humans prefer atmospheric enhancements during their cleansing ceremonies. I have created what your species would call ambience. Maya peered into the bathroom and gasped. The entire space had been transformed. The floating lights weren't the only change. There were strange crystalline formations growing from the walls that seemed to pulse with gentle energy. The air itself felt different, somehow softer and more relaxing. Even the plain white tiles seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly glow. Zeph, how did you do all this? Simple environmental adjustments using standard technology from my world, he replied casually. I also researched human relaxation preferences by analyzing your entertainment media. This music compilation includes sounds that humans reportedly find soothing during water-based activities. As if on cue, the mysterious music shifted to what sounded like dolphins singing along to a synthesizer, accompanied by the gentle sound of rain. Maya had to admit it was oddly relaxing, even if it was completely bizarre. I have also prepared traditional human bathing accessories, Zeph continued, gesturing to a collection of items arranged on the bathroom counter. Maya recognized some expensive-looking bath oils, candles, and what appeared to be several types of soap she definitely hadn't bought. Where did you get all this stuff? I conducted research at your local commercial establishments, Zeph explained. The humans working at the bath and body shop were very helpful when I explained that I was preparing for an important roommate bonding experience. They recommended several products specifically designed for shared relaxation moments. Maya felt her face turn red as she imagined Zeph asking store employees for advice about roommate bonding experiences. Those poor workers probably thought he was planning some kind of romantic encounter. Zeph, we really need to talk about this. Maya started, but he held up his hand to stop her. I understand your nervousness, he said with infinite patience. This is clearly a very meaningful tradition for your species, which is why you have been so careful about timing. But I believe I have finally created the perfect conditions for our ceremony. It's not a ceremony, Maya protested, but even as she said it, she realized how futile her words were. Zeph had put so much thought and effort into his preparations that telling him it was all unnecessary felt almost cruel. I have also been consulting with my supervisors on my home planet, Zeph added, pulling out his communication device. They are very interested in this aspect of human culture. Your supervisors? Maya's voice came out as a squeak. Double quotes, yes. They have been following my research with great interest. In fact, they would like to observe our bonding ritual to better understand human social customs. Before Maya could process what that meant, the air in the bathroom shimmered, and suddenly 3 holographic figures appeared floating above the bathtub. They looked similar to Zeph, but with more pronounced alien features, longer limbs, larger eyes, and skin that shifted between different shades of blue and silver. Greetings, human Maya, said the center figure in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. I am Research Director Kale. We are honored to witness this important cultural exchange. Maya stared at the floating alien holograms in her bathroom, her mind struggling to process the situation. Hello, she managed to say weakly. Zeph has provided fascinating documentation of your species' domestic bonding rituals. Continued another hologram. We are particularly intrigued by the emotional complexity surrounding your shared cleansing practices. This suggests a level of social sophistication we had not previously observed in your species. The preparation phase alone demonstrates remarkable ritualistic behavior, added the third alien, the use of atmospheric lighting, musical accompaniment, and aromatic enhancements indicates that this ceremony holds deep cultural significance. Maya looked from the excited holographic aliens to Zeph, who was beaming with pride at having impressed his supervisors. She realized that what had started as a simple misunderstanding between roommates had somehow escalated into an interplanetary anthropological study. Actually, Maya said, finding her voice, I think there's been a huge misunderstanding. But before she could explain, Zeph stepped forward with obvious excitement. Maya is demonstrating the modesty that is traditional before such ceremonies. He told his supervisors, this confirms our research about the emotional preparation required for successful human bonding. Experiences, fascinating, murmured Research Director Kale. The psychological barriers seem to be as important as the physical ritual itself. I'm not being modest, Maya protested. I'm trying to tell you that humans don't actually do this. The 3 alien supervisors exchanged glances, their holographic forms flickering with what appeared to be increased interest. Denial is part of the process, observed the second supervisor. This suggests that the ritual involves overcoming internal resistance, possibly as a way of building trust and intimacy. No, that's not what I mean at all, Maya said desperately, but Zeph was nodding enthusiastically. Exactly. Maya has been helping me understand the complex emotional layers involved in human bonding. The reluctance itself appears to be a crucial component of the ceremony. Maya watched in horror as her attempts to explain the truth were being interpreted as evidence for an even more elaborate theory about human behavior. The alien supervisors were taking notes on holographic devices, clearly fascinated by what they believed was a live demonstration of human psychological complexity. We should document this carefully, said Research Director Kale. The emotional resistance phase may be key to understanding how humans form social bonds. Wait, Maya said, waving her hands frantically. Nobody is documenting anything. This is all a mistake. The intensification of emotional response is remarkable, noted the third supervisor. Clearly, we are observing a critical moment in the bonding process. Maya realized she was trapped in the most absurd situation of her life. Not only did she have an alien roommate, who was convinced that shower sharing was essential to human friendship, but now she had 3 alien researchers studying her every word, in reaction as if she was a fascinating specimen demonstrating the mysteries of human culture. Zeph, she said, trying to keep her voice calm, can we please talk privately for a moment? Of course, Zeph replied. Privacy discussions are probably another important part of the preparation ritual, as the holographic supervisors continued, making notes about Maya's preparation behavior. She grabbed Zeph's arm and pulled him into the living room, closing the bathroom door behind them. Okay, she said, taking a deep breath. We need to fix this situation right now. before it gets any more out of hand. I agree, Zeph said eagerly. I believe we have completed sufficient preparation. We should proceed with the actual ceremony. Maya stared at him, realizing that her alien roommate was completely, utterly, and hopelessly convinced that they were about to participate in some kind of sacred human bonding ritual, and somehow she had to find a way to explain the truth before the situation became even more ridiculous than it already was. Maya stood in her living room, staring at Zeph while the sound of three alien researchers discussing human bonding rituals drifted from her transformed bathroom. She realized that simply telling Zeph he was wrong wasn't going to work anymore. She needed to approach this like the scientist she was training to be. Zeph, she said, sitting down on the couch and patting the space next to her. I want to try something different. Instead of me just telling you about human culture, why don't you help me understand yours first? Zeph's eyes lit up with that familiar silver glow. You wish to learn about my people's customs? This is an excellent development in our cultural exchange. Yes, tell me about how your species handles privacy and personal space, Maya said carefully. Zeph settled onto the couch, his expression becoming thoughtful. Privacy is not a concept that translates well to our world. On Kepler 440b, we exist in collective harmony. Most activities are performed together as a way of maintaining social balance and sharing energy efficiently, so you do everything as a group, nearly everything, Zeph confirmed. We share energy pools for nourishment, we rest in communal spaces, and we cleanse ourselves in group formations that distribute purification energy among all participants. The idea of performing necessary functions alone would be lonely and inefficient for us. Maya felt a light bulb go off in her head. So when you saw humans bathing individually, it seemed strange to you? Extremely strange. Zeph admitted, I could not understand why your species would choose isolation during such a basic necessity. It seemed wasteful and sad. That's why I became convinced that roommate shower sharing must be an important bonding activity. It was the only explanation that made sense from my perspective. And because privacy isn't something your species values, you couldn't understand why I kept refusing. Exactly, Zeph said, looking relieved that Maya was finally starting to understand. Every time you expressed reluctance, I assumed it was because I hadn't properly demonstrated my readiness to participate in your cultural practices. Maya took a deep breath. This was her chance to make him understand. Zeph, what if I told you that for humans, privacy and individual space are actually core values? What if being alone sometimes is how we feel comfortable and safe? Zeph tilted his head in that bird-like way of his. That would be very different from my species, but it would explain many of your reactions. Think about it, Maya continued. You've been studying my daily routines, right? Have you noticed that I sometimes close my bedroom door when I'm studying? Or that I put on headphones when I want to focus? Yes? I documented those behaviors, but I assumed they were preparation. Rituals for different activities. They're not preparation for anything, Maya explained. They're just me needing space to think and be by myself. For humans, having time alone isn't loneliness, it's how we recharge and feel comfortable. Maya could see Zeph processing this information, his alien mind working to understand a concept that was completely foreign to his species. So when you take water baths alone, he said slowly, I'm not waiting for someone to join me. Maya finished, I'm enjoying a private moment to relax and take care of myself. It's actually the opposite of a social activity for most humans. Zeph was quiet for a long moment, his eyes shifting between their normal appearance and brief flashes of silver. As he thought, this explains why your friends reacted with confusion when I mentioned communal cleansing, he said finally, and why the humans at your fitness facility seemed uncomfortable when I asked about their bonding experiences. You asked people at the gym about bonding experiences? Maya tried not to laugh. I may have misinterpreted their exercising and subsequent individual bathing as preparation for group activities, Zeph admitted, looking embarrassed for the first time since Maya had known him. I approached several humans to inquire about their emotional readiness for shared cleansing rituals. Oh no, Zeph, I believe I may have caused what you call awkward situations," he said sheepishly. One human suggested I speak with a counselor about personal boundaries. Maya couldn't help but giggle at the image of Zeph earnestly questioning random gym-goers about their shower habits. "We should probably call your supervisors back in here. They need to understand what actually happened." They returned to the bathroom, where the 3 holographic aliens were still floating above the bathtub, making detailed notes about what they believe was an extended human preparation ritual. "Research Director Kale," Zeph said formally, "I need to make a correction to my cultural research." The alien holograms turned their attention to him with interest. "Has the bonding ceremony reached a new phase?" "No," Zeph replied. "There is no bonding ceremony. I have misunderstood a fundamental aspect of human culture." Maya watched as Zeph carefully explained the concept of privacy and individual autonomy to his supervisors. It was fascinating to see him translate human values into terms that his collectivist species could understand. "So humans actually prefer to perform cleansing activities in isolation?" asked one of the supervisors, clearly struggling with the concept. "It appears so," Zeph confirmed. "What I interpreted as preparation for group bonding was actually the humans engaging in their preferred individual practice." "Remarkable," murmured Research Director Kale. "A species that values solitary time as a positive experience rather than a punishment or necessity. This changes our entire understanding of human social structures," added another supervisor. "If humans actively seek individual experiences, then their group activities must have very different meanings than we initially assumed." Maya stepped forward. "If it helps, we do have group activities that are important for bonding. We cook meals together, watch movies, play games, and talk about our lives. We just don't share certain personal activities like bathing." "Fascinating," said Research Director Kale. "So humans create intimacy through shared experiences while maintaining individual autonomy in private matters." "Exactly," Maya said, feeling proud that she was helping bridge an interspecies cultural gap. The alien supervisors made final notes and began to fade away. "This has been highly educational," Research Director Kale said. "Zeph, your research has provided valuable insights into the complexity of human social behavior, even if your initial hypothesis was incorrect." After the holograms disappeared, Maya and Zeph sat together in the now quiet bathroom, surrounded by floating lights and the lingering scent of expensive bath oils. "I apologize for the misunderstanding," Zeph said sincerely. "I should have asked more direct questions about your customs instead of making assumptions based on limited data." "It's okay," Maya replied. "You were trying to be respectful and learn about my culture. You just interpreted the information differently than a human would. And I apologize for the awkward situations I created with your friends and fellow students. We'll figure out how to handle that," Maya laughed. "Maybe we can say you're from a very isolated culture that has different social norms." Zeph began dismantling his bathroom modifications, the floating lights slowly fading and the crystal formations retracting into his technological devices. "You know," Maya said, watching the alien technology at work, "even though this was all based on a misunderstanding, it's been pretty amazing. I got to learn about your species, and you learned about human privacy. That's pretty cool cultural exchange. Even if it wasn't what either of us expected, perhaps we could establish some actual human bonding activities," Zeph suggested. "I would still like to understand how your species builds friendships." "I'd like that," Maya smiled. "How about we start with cooking dinner together? That's a real human bonding activity." "No communal bathing required," Zeph asked with what Maya was beginning to recognize as alien humor. "Definitely no communal bathing required," she confirmed, as they headed to the kitchen to prepare their first official cultural exchange meal. Maya reflected on how her simple graduate student life had led to accidentally becoming an ambassador for human privacy rights to an alien species. It wasn't the roommate experience she had expected, but it was certainly more interesting than splitting rent with another broke college student. And best of all, she finally had her bathroom back.